She lives to fight another year. Theresa May survives no confidence vote as Tory MPs squabble over Brexit deal. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Keneal Gale. Thanks for joining us this week. It was a difficult week for UK Prime Minister Theresa May as she continues to fight to deliver a Brexit deal to the British people. We'll tell you all about that in a bit, but right now here are some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. The state of emergency will not be extended. That's the decision coming out of Parliament after a marathon sitting on Tuesday, which ended close to midnight. The government was seeking an extension of the states of emergency in sections of St. James, St. Catherine and Kingston. However, without the opposition's support, they did not get to the required two-thirds majority. Jamila Maitland has more.
After some 7 hours of debate on the extension of the state of public emergency, the motion, which needed a two-third majority, failed after parliamentarians voted 32-20 along party lines. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips argued that his side could not vote on the resolution as it is unconstitutional. He noted that of the 3,700 detained during the months of state of emergency, only 179 were charged.
99% of what is done in a state of emergency can still be done without a state of emergency.
He's recommending more zones of special operations ZOSO.
We support the extension of the ZOSOs. We call for more ZOSOs to be considered and instituted. But we cannot, Mr. Speaker, given our constitutional responsibilities, support the further extension of the state of emergency. Thank you.
And opposition spokesman on national security Fitz Jackson argued that he's not pleased with the inhumane condition that individuals arrested are kept in.
The Prime Minister never report anything about the sanitary condition that prevailed in the detention centers. None of the reports that came in this House spoke to those inhumane conditions that the Director of the Public Defender informed this House of.
But a very passionate Prime Minister Andrew Holness argued that the points raised by the opposition does not warrant the rejection of the emergency powers.
This concern as a reason, as a basis for not continuing the public state of emergency is hypocritical, it is duplicitous, it is unreasonable. More than that, it is opportunistic.
Meanwhile, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce say the states of emergency should not end until a suitable crime plan replacement is found. Here's Ashana Small.
The president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce says the state of emergency has served its purpose and it should be removed, but only after a clear crime plan has been put forward.
We're of the view that the anti-crime measures, in particular the ZOSOs and the state of emergencies, have served the purpose. And really the government really needs to indicate how we move from current state to what should be the normal mode of operation for the security forces. It's well timed that the state of emergency should be removed, but we don't believe it should be removed without a very clear plan around how we will manage it or how the government will manage it going forward.
Mr. Distant notes that the state of emergency has been successful in reducing crime in the areas it's implemented. That's why it's important that a replacement be found before it's removed.
Given the successes that have taken place, reducing the crime in the murder in St. James by 72% and the reduction in shootings by 63%, I mean, those are huge improvement, and we don't want to lose the benefit of what has been achieved by by removing the state of emergency without a plan of action in place.
In the meantime, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, says it supports the continuation of the state of emergency in St. James, St. Catherine, and sections of the corporate area until a sustainable crime plan replacement is found. The JHTA says the states of emergency and the zones of special operations have been instrumental in curbing crime in the areas where they've been imposed. They say their travel partners were pleased that some decisive action was being taken to curb Jamaica's rising crime levels. The JHTA says it's concerned by the opposition's decision to withdraw its support for the continuation of the states of emergency. It says the opposition's vote to extend the zones of special operations in Mount Salem, St. James, and Denham Town in West Kingston is not enough. The JHTA says although these security measures are not a long-term crime-fighting strategy and have to eventually come to an end, they're very concerned as to what will happen without an effective transition. They're urging the government and opposition to come together in a non-partisan way to finalize a sustainable crime prevention plan. And the vote by the Opposition People's National Party, PNP, to reject another extension of the states of public emergency has triggered public discussions about whether or not the emergency powers should be extended. Jamila Maitland got reactions from residents of downtown Kingston, where one of the states of emergency is in effect.
One vendor who didn't want to be identified says he wants the state of emergency to be extended. He's asking for more police presence, especially during the Christmas and the New Year period.
Yeah, man, we want to extend it, man, right back till January. We back now, we down, man, because right now I be a thief in a town, worse like our Christmas, and now we don't mind in the town right through every day.
Another agreed. She notes the declining crime rate across the country, which is good for business and the country.
When you look and say where that Montego Bay and Westmoreland and the rest of place them, and other places where it don't reach, people are fear set to go reach those are going to reach it, because if they do nothing, those are reach it, so them just don't bother with it.
The vendors say their main concern is being held up and robbed. They say that's also the main issue for the people who visit downtown. Another vendor who's been working in downtown for years and resides in Denham Town says many of the soldiers are focused elsewhere instead of curtailing crime.
Less crime there, I'm not be biased. Less crime there, but them for see more things. Where me live in Denham Town, them on corner with woman and nasty other business, or them a look woman.
Others say the lawmen have told the higglers they should leave the streets by 10 p.m. But this man questions how, especially during the busy Christmas period.
Yeah, them for them thing more professional. I get me say, they need to go out there look for gunmen, them and investigate and cooperate with the people. They can't do people like hooligan. They have to come and talk to people and show them love.
Moving on now, there's still no definitive Brexit deal as parliamentarians in the UK continue to squabble over the terms Theresa May agreed to with the European Union. The latest round of heated debates resulted in a no-confidence vote.
Is Theresa May on her way out as Prime Minister? The possibility is now greater than ever after the Conservative Party triggered a vote of no confidence against its leader. On Wednesday morning, the chairman of the 1922 committee issued a release saying the threshold of 15% of the parliamentary party seeking a vote of confidence in the leader had been exceeded. Theresa May has vowed to fight on at the helm of the country.
I will contest that vote with everything I've got. I stood to be leader because I believe in the Conservative vision for a better future. And at this crucial moment in our history, that means securing a Brexit deal that delivers on the result of the EU referendum.
The secret ballot vote will take place on Wednesday evening. Half of Tory MPs voting against Theresa May would be enough to oust her as Prime Minister and leader of the party. She says that would put Britain's exit from the European Union in jeopardy.
Including a change of leadership in the Conservative Party now will put our country's future at risk and create uncertainty when we can least afford it. The new leader wouldn't have time to renegotiate a withdrawal agreement and get the legislation through Parliament by the 29th of March. So one of their first acts would have to be extending or rescinding Article 50, delaying or even stopping Brexit when people want us to get on with it.
Theresa May was set to spend the week carrying out a Europe-wide charm offensive in hope of renegotiating her Brexit deal. She's now cancelled a trip to Dublin in order to stay home and make the case for her leadership.
A close shave for Theresa May, but she's not safe yet. More than a third of her MPs voted no confidence in her. Although she survived the challenge, the mutiny means Parliament's in deadlock over Brexit.
The majority in the House of Commons is not something she can call on support for, and she can barely get a majority in her own party. So there's no way she can go back to the EU and get a better deal for Britain.
The Prime Minister already cancelled a vote in Parliament on her deal, the fruit of 2 years of negotiations with the EU, realising it would be heavily defeated. Now she's headed back to Brussels to seek what she's called legal and political assurances on the most controversial part of the deal, a policy to prevent a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. She's looking for pledges from EU leaders on the nature and timeframe of this backstop, but the Northern Irish DUP, which props up May's government, strongly opposes an arrangement which can only be terminated with the EU's consent, rather than by the UK unilaterally.
Our focus has been on the withdrawal agreement and the changes that need to be made to it to get our support and the support of many other colleagues across the House of Commons. I don't think this vote really changes very much in terms of the arithmetic on that, and that's our concern.
EU leaders have said that although they have no intention of changing the agreement itself, they're open to providing clarifications. If what May brings back home still doesn't satisfy, she could face a cross-party parliamentary vote of confidence. Cold comfort from Brussels. 27 EU leaders have said they're determined to establish an arrangement with the UK by 2020, which avoids triggering an Irish backstop, the part of Theresa May's Brexit deal which is most controversial in the UK Parliament. But she also wanted to amend the package with legally binding pledges, something she did not get.
We want to have an agreement, and the withdrawal agreement we have negotiated will not be put up for debate again. It's been negotiated, and that is that.
The head of the EU Commission said discussions were sometimes nebulous and imprecise.
Talking about our future relationship, our UK friends need to say what they want, instead of asking us what we want.
Diplomats expect further high-stakes talks in the new year, when May must win parliamentary approval for her deal. The House of Commons is divided over how and even whether to leave the EU. If it doesn't vote through May's deal, the UK's departure in March could be chaotic.
The EU is clear, as I am, that if we are going to leave with the deal, this is it. But my discussions with colleagues today have shown that further clarification and discussion following the Council's conclusions is, in fact, possible. There is work still to do, and we will be holding talks in coming days about how to obtain the further assurances that the UK Parliament needs in order to be able to approve the deal. I say again, it is in the overwhelming interest of all our people, in the EU and the UK, to get this done, and as quickly as possible.
Company news comes up next. Then later, this island off the US East Coast is sinking, but residents refuse to believe it's due to climate change. We'll tell you more about that in the final segment of the show. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
Fontana Pharmacy's initial public offering IPO closed in near record time after just 5 minutes. The company is offering 250 million shares, which they plan to list on the junior market of Jamaica Stock Exchange. The shares were priced at $1.88 each. Fontana says it intends to use half of the $468 million in proceeds to improve and expand the business. The invitation to buy into the 50-year-old company was scheduled to close on December 20, but was oversubscribed within 5 minutes. Fontana is the largest pharmacy chain in Jamaica. It has 5 stores with a 6th currently currently being built on Waterloo Road in Kingston. The Blue Power Group says combined sales for the second quarter, which ended October 31, 2018, were $862 million, an increase of $101 million or 13% when compared to the same period last year. Export sales continue to record an improved performance. During the period under review, over 24% of soaps went to export markets in the Caribbean, the US and the UK. Looking ahead, Blue Power points out that the indicators for continued development of the local economy is a positive factor for the company, which plans to pursue development in both its soap and lumber divisions. The company is also exploring new products and markets for greater development. 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited says the 2018 financial year, which ended on September 30, culminated with the group recording a loss after taxation of $18.9 million. Disaggregated, it was a net profit of $31.34 million for 138 Student Living and a net loss of $50.24 million for 138 Student Living Restoration. It was for both companies the first full year of operations with the present complement of 1,464 rooms. The company says the increased rooms under management impacted profitability negatively, while income was less than optimal, while at the same time expenses increased.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When you come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Parliamentarians continue to spar about the damning Auditor General Petrojam report during Tuesday's sitting. Leader of Government Business in the House, Carl Samuda, halted the sitting of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, PAC, earlier in the day, arguing that it was inappropriately convened. However, during the lower house's sitting, House Speaker Pernell Charles denounced Mr. Samuda's action. Here's more.
A frustrated House Speaker trying to calm enraged parliamentarians after it was revealed that the morning's Public Accounts Committee PAC sitting ended abruptly. PAC Chairman Mark Golding read contents of a letter he received during the meeting.
This serves to advise you that due to the fact that there was no majority decision of the committee to convene a meeting of the PAC, I have been instructed by Minister Carl Samuda, leader of government business in the House of Representatives, to withdraw the services of the staff of the House of Parliament on these proceedings with immediate effect. That was a disgraceful act.
However, Leader of Government Business Carl Samuda pointed out that the sitting to review the Auditor General's Petrojam report was scheduled for December 18. He said this was the date agreed by all PAC members.
What we witness here today is raw, unadulterated, scandalous, unworthy attempts of politicizing a very serious matter.
Leader of Opposition Business Philip Paulwell acknowledged that the meeting was scheduled for the 18th. However, he said the changes were relayed to the government PAC members, but some members said they didn't receive it.
When I looked at the agenda, there was another meeting scheduled at Parliament for 10 a.m. this morning, and it was not PAC meeting.
Even the letter from the clerk that state that the majority of the members were not available today. And as such, none of us were advised of that.
PSOJ President Howard Mitchell says the absence of corporate governance legislation is partly to blame for the breakdown at Petrojam. The private sector organization of Jamaica is calling on the government to review and pass the corporate governance framework into legislation. They say if the government wants to convince the public that the administration is serious about accountability, then it must take steps to regain the public's trust. The PSOJ president was addressing the public body's corporate governance awards function on Wednesday. Here's more.
In light of the Auditor General's finding into state-owned oil refinery Petrojam, President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Howard Mitchell, is calling on Cabinet to pass the corporate governance framework so it can be tabled in Parliament soon. Mr. Mitchell says although there's a Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act and a Financial and Audit Act, there needs to be a Corporate Governance Act as well. He argues that the absence of the legislation may have resulted in the breakdown at Petrojam.
The Auditor General's report on Petrojam is a damning account of how it can all go horribly wrong when the principles of good governance are not put into practice. Unconscionable use of public funds cannot be tolerated.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says his ministry is working on ways to ensure that money spent by tourists remains in the island and helps to grow the economy. The minister was speaking Thursday morning at the Money Masters Breakfast Series themed conversations with the analyst. Sashana Small tells us more.
The tourism minister says to stop the leakage of money spent by tourists when they visit the island, there must be better cooperation within the tourism sector.
So the issue of leakage of the tourism dollar is only going to be managed by linkages within the sector. So to plug the linkages, we have to stop the leakages. And to stop the leakages means that we must own the consumption, what we call patterns of tourism.
He also wants more Jamaicans to get involved in tourism. He says by doing this, Jamaica would cater more to the different consumption patterns of tourists.
How can we help to empower the people of Jamaica to supply against the demand of tourism by indulging in a little bit of risk management? Just a little bit of risk management. But the truth is that the risk is not that great because we are growing. The industry is growing, the demand is expanding. At 4.3 million visitors, our market, our local market has increased by nearly 300,000 per month.
When we come back, we'll introduce you to some Americans who may be among the first set of climate change refugees. More on that after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. An island on the east coast of the U.S. state of Virginia is literally sinking. Its inhabitants are bracing to become among the first climate change refugees of North America. But as the planet's temperature rises, the inhabitants of Tangier Island, Virginia, refuse to believe global warming exists.
Tangier Island is no more than a speck in the water. 2 square kilometers of land pummeled by wind and waves, shrinking just a bit every day.
I'm not just talking about saving a piece of land. I'm talking about a community of people.
James Eskridge is a crab fisherman, just like his father and his grandfather before him. He's also the mayor of this island of 700, a community so isolated its inhabitants have retained their own distinctive accent, tracing back 300 years.
We've been here for quite a while. We'd like to remain for a lot longer.
But the island is vanishing. Every year, meters of soil disappear into the water. 15 years ago, the shoreline extended all the way to these wood pilings now sticking out of the water. And the fear is that in another 15 years or less, the water will reach all the way to the house. Already, entire neighborhoods have gone under.
It's hard to imagine that where we are now, there was actually a thriving community at one time where they used to live and where the children played. Now it's probably 10 or 12 feet underwater.
People here know, without dramatic efforts to rebuild the soil or break the waves, this is the future that awaits the entire island. But they disagree with scientists who say global warming is to blame.
The sea level has been rising, and in more recent years, it's rising more quickly.
Tangier is politically conservative. Wisdom here tends to come from experience, not studies.
Everything's the same. I've been doing it all my life. I don't see no difference in it. I wouldn't call it climate change. I've seen changes in the weather, but it seems like to me, and myself and the president, we talked about that.
Compliance with the terms of the Paris Accord.
That's President Donald Trump, a fellow global warming skeptic who pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement last year. Days after making that announcement, Trump called Tangier's mayor to tell him not to worry about a rise in sea level. Here, the love for Trump comes second only to the love for crabs.
We fully support the president on the island.
Despite what most people would say is evidence at his door, the mayor remains disbelieving.
I'm just not going along by, people saying so. Show me that it's happening and I'll go along with it.
What if by the time you see it with your own eyes, it's too late?
Then that won't be good, and I'm sure that's what I'll be remembered for, that, I didn't go along with it.
It's a dangerous wager, but one people here are still willing to make. They say their beliefs simply run deeper than the waters rising around them. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Tangier, Virginia.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.